Hello and welcome to Betting from Home. My name is Dave Jones, and welcome to Week 8 in the NFL. Going into Week 8, you can really talk about who's your real teams. I know it's only halfway through, but you can start talking about who's your playoff contenders, your championship contenders. So we'll just go real quick on some first thoughts on that. So going into Week 8, my first thoughts is I'm just going to kind of list off who I think are the contenders and who I think we can drop off the list. I think Buffalo in the AFC is going to come out on top in their division. So Buffalo is definitely going to be a contender for the playoffs. They might win a couple of games. I don't know if they're going to make it to the championship game, but we'll find out. Pittsburgh's a for sure contender to win the championship game. Baltimore is a contender to make it to the playoffs. Moving on down to Tennessee. Tennessee is a championship contender. They're showing us that they could compete at a high level. Indianapolis in the same division, I'm going to move them down to not a contender. I don't think they're as good as I originally thought they were. They might make the playoffs, but they're going to be a first-round loss. Kansas City, obviously, a contender. The NFC East, Philadelphia, Washington, Dallas, and New York Giants, none of these teams are contenders. I'm not even sure who's going to win the division. I guess pick Philly because they're already on top at 2-4-1. All those teams, though, just don't really have it. Green Bay is a contender in the playoffs. The Bears, unfortunately, my team. I think we kind of saw it versus the Rams. They might make the playoffs, but they're a one-and-done team. The next division, NFC South, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, and Carolina are all contenders. Tampa Bay and New Orleans will make it to the playoffs, and Carolina might get a wild card. There is an extended playoff spot this year, so look for them to stick around. Carolina might be a one-and-done. New Orleans should win a playoff game this year, but as we all know, they seem to come up unlucky even though they're a good team. Tampa Bay is a solid team this year. Tom Brady, they just signed Antonio Brown. They're going to be looking to make a push for the championship game. Seattle is a contender. That's because they don't have a good defense. And Arizona is a contender as well. The LA Rams, hey, you know what? They're 5-2. This is the toughest division. The LA Rams, they might make the playoffs. And can an entire division make the playoffs? With the extended, you can have the conference champs. The division, then I guess it would also be the same as the division champs. But all four of those teams, in my mind, San Francisco with Jimmy Garoppolo, can make the playoffs. Can the entire division? It's a real question. I have no idea if that's even possible. If that's possible, you might have a four-way NFC West. Someone's got to drop from that division, right? Once they start playing each other, we'll find out. So far, Arizona is 2-0 within the division, so maybe Arizona is going to pull ahead in that division. Who knows? But that is your toughest division, and your weakest division is the NFC East. So that's kind of where I want to start off. Who's the contenders? Who's the pretenders? there are some really good teams this year, but there are definitely a few that stick out amongst the others. Yeah. All right. This week 8, I kind of felt like I could make a strong decision about, well, maybe not every game, but definitely the most amount of games where I felt like I could make a decision either on the spread or on the over-under. So let's get started here, and it'll kind of work its way through on how I feel about each team. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on some of the games, just the ones that are kind of a little more important, but I will go through how I feel on the games. It might be quick, might be a little longer, but here we go. Atlanta 8, Carolina. I'm taking Carolina minus the 2.5. Carolina has a better defense than Atlanta. We all know that Atlanta is probably one of the worst teams defensively. Atlanta is one of the worst teams defensively, and Carolina has a better than average defense. Points allowed per game, Atlanta 29 and Carolina 24. The problem with Carolina is their offense. They're only scoring 23 points a game, and Atlanta scoring 26 points a game. So it might be a close game, but Carolina, with only a 2.5 point spread, I think they'll win by at least 2.5. Whenever I see that 2.5 point spread, I usually just pick a team outright. You could take them on the money line and still win some money in a parlay with a negative 152 money line, but the spread is usually the negative 110, so your value is just taking the spread. Carolina minus 2.5. New England and Buffalo. I'm taking Buffalo minus the 3.5. New England's not that good of a team this year. It turns out you do need Tom Brady on New England in order to win the division, at least for this year. Hopefully Bill Belichick isn't like at home just shaking his head. New England doesn't have the offense that they usually do. Buffalo is a contender team, like I said, so negative 3.5. Tennessee at Cincinnati. This is a game I kind of had a harder time picking exactly which way to go. Tennessee doesn't win a lot of games by a wide margin here. They have a 5.5 point spread. But they lost to Pittsburgh. They lost to Pittsburgh by 3. They came back and beat Houston by 6. Minnesota, they won by 1. Jacksonville, they won by 3. So even against some bad teams, Tennessee has only won by a couple of points, but they do keep finding a way to win it. So Cincinnati is going to... Tennessee is most likely going to win this game. Cincinnati, however, also does keep it close. They lost to the Browns by 3. They lost to Indy by 4. They won to Jacksonville by 8, and they tied Philly. Their point spread difference is not that huge. There is an over-under of 54. I'm going to go under the 54, mainly because I think that's going to be close. I initially said this is a stay-away game. I want to say under 54. Look, both the defenses. The Tennessee lets up 25 points. Cincinnati lets up 27 points, almost 28 points per game. Tennessee, 31 points of offense. Cincinnati, 23 points on offense. That's 54 right there. They're kind of the house. The house is the sports books are kind of expecting both teams to score what they usually score, and they're going with the over/under 54. I can't really say that Tennessee wins this game by 5. Then I can't really say that this game goes over/under. I think it will be a shootout. That's why I'm going to think it's going to be an over. But ultimately, just stay away from this game. It's kind of a scary game to bet with. I'm personally not going to bet on it. But go ahead and go with Tennessee to win it. 5.5 point spread. Sure. I don't know. Got no real advice here. Las Vegas Raiders versus Cleveland. As you know, the Las Vegas Raiders versus Cleveland. As you know, I am a fan of the Las Vegas Raiders of at least being a solid, good team this year. Cleveland has shown up and proven to us they can win some games. Last week I said 2 good offenses, but 2 bad defenses. Picked the over. It didn't work out last week. The over-under for this game is 53. This game, I'm going to pick. That's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go over 53 points. It's going to be a bigger shootout than some people think it's going to be. Let's see. Las Vegas is actually the underdog here at 2.5 points. I'm a fan of Vegas. I would also take Vegas plus 2.5. That leaves you with the money line at a positive 130. That's kind of where I'm going. The Browns have only really beat bad teams. Cincinnati, Indianapolis has shown not be that good. They beat Dallas. They beat the Washington football team. They lost to Pittsburgh. They beat Cincinnati and lost to Baltimore. So who did they win against? The Vegas Raiders. They beat Carolina, which is a decent team. They beat New Orleans, which is a pretty good team. They beat Kansas City. So Las Vegas has beat better teams. They lost to the Bills, an okay team. New England, a bad team. And they lost to Tampa Bay, which is a good team. So I think your bet here, since they are the underdog team, is to go with Vegas. Once again, though, in the NFL, anything could happen. So if you don't feel confident about Vegas, go ahead and go with the Browns, but I'm picking Vegas. Green Bay, Minnesota. Green Bay is going to show up again and beat a bad Minnesota. I'm going to take Green Bay plus 6.5. Aaron Rodgers, he's an all-star quarterback. Kirk Cousins, I'm not a huge fan of him. Minnesota is not a good defense like last year. Minnesota is lighting up 32 points per game. Green Bay is scoring through 32 points per game. So look at Green Bay to be 35. And 35-21 is what I originally picked this game at. You can go over the 55 on this game. That would be 56. Like just my prediction score here. 35-21. Green Bay does let up 26 points per game, which is right at Minnesota's average. Whenever a team is going up against a defense that kind of gives up what they score, I kind of subtract like 3 or 4. That's how I got 35-21. And I added 3 points to Minnesota's defensive allowance of 32. So 35-21, that's going to be over the 55. I would go as high as 56 or 57. Once you get that high, once the line starts to move and they keep raising it, you would go under like 58. It's not gonna go higher than that. I don't think it's gonna be a 60-point total for this game. It would be a little too high for me. But at 55, I think you would squeak past with the over, and I would take Green Bay minus 6.5. I think they win by a touchdown. So that's what I'm going to go with that. The first good game here on my list is going to be Pittsburgh at Baltimore. Pittsburgh has a legit team this year. They have a real championship contender. Ben Roethlisberger is not showing his age this year, and he's coming out and playing like he should. He's thrown 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and has thrown for 1,446 yards. Lamar Jackson is 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He is a little more accurate than people think he is, and he's thrown for 1,135 yards. So, with that said, Lamar Jackson only thrown for right around 300 less yards than Ben Roethlisberger. So, it's going to be a close game, but I'm going with defense. Pittsburgh is only letting up 20 points per game. Baltimore's letting up 17 points per game. So you immediately look at this game and think it's going to be a high-scoring game. However, they have an over-under of 47. Like, take the over, right? I mean, come on. This is gonna be. If I had to put a score down for this, 28-25, I think it hits 50 points. 47 is pretty low. Did they change that recently, or is it still at? It's at 46. People are going the under because of the two defenses. What is it going to be? 2017? Is that what they're thinking? It's going to be like a 37, 21, 20, 24, 20. I mean, come on. Watch it be a real lousy type game. Plus 3.5. Technically a really good game, but it's going to look like a lousy game because it's going to be like a low-scoring game. It's going to be actually a grind-em-out type of game. It could turn into a shootout. If it turns into a shootout, definitely take the over if that's the way you feel. I just think, though, that Pittsburgh is winning the games by how much they've covered the spread. They keep putting these small little spreads with Pittsburgh, like 3, 4, like 5-point spreads, maybe a 6-point spread. This is a 3.5-point spread. Take Pittsburgh minus 3.5. I think you'll be good. Baltimore is a good team, but they're not as strong as they were last year. Let's see. They beat Philly. They beat Cincinnati. They beat Washington. They beat Houston. Those ones I just mentioned, not that great. Pittsburgh beat Tennessee, Cleveland, Philly, Houston. But they beat them by wider margins, a little stronger. No. I'm going to have to delete that. They're actually pretty equal teams. Pittsburgh and Baltimore. You know what? Baltimore is my second favorite, or Pittsburgh is my second favorite team. I'm a fan of Ben Roethlisberger. Maybe I'm a little bit biased. I like him. Moving on down to the next game, we got New Orleans at Chicago. I have to always report on my team. Last week, I saw the Rams show me what my team is actually made of. I have to say, if I wasn't a Bears fan, I'd be kind of jumping off their bandwagon of them being a good team. They might make it to the playoffs in a underdog round. Who knows? They might scrap it out to win one game. They're not going to make it to the championship game. Nick Foles, he is being pressured every single time. Their O-line isn't good enough. The Bears' O-line is not good enough to win this game. It's going to be closer than some people think it is. It is Bears +4. I would have taken Bears +6. I don't think I'll take Bears +4. Let's see, over under 43. This is going to be, in my mind, somewhere around a 30-20 game, 30-17. I'm going 47. I would take the over 43 because 43 is just too small of a total to not take an over. Honestly, or you gotta really just think about how do you get under 43 points with the Saints. The Saints most likely score 21. They're gonna get 21 points. I guess you're kind of expecting the sports books are probably expecting this game to be like a 24-21 game. That would be 44. See, wait, are the Bears only going to score like 2 touchdowns this game? I think they bounced back a little bit from last week versus the Rams, right? We get 17. Can we get 17? 30-17 would be 47. I mean, I don't know. What is it going to be? 24-17? $24-17 would be a 41. Is that kind of where the sports books are looking? I don't know. I think also nationally the Bears don't look as good as they are. They're a legit good team. They're not a legit better team. They're not a better team. They're 5-2. They could be 4-3. You know, that's kind of what you would have to think about, a 4-3 team. Can they win against New Orleans? And any team can beat any team. You never know what's going to happen. However, I'm going to pick New Orleans. It's New Orleans -4. I don't want to say it. Kind of breaks my heart to bet against my Bears, but I'm trying to give you advice, and my advice would be pick the Saints to win. San Francisco at Seattle. Boy, if you are not a Jimmy Garoppolo fan, then you aren't watching the same Jimmy Garoppolo I'm watching. He makes San Francisco better. That's what you have to look at here, is he makes San Francisco a better team. Without Jimmy Garoppolo, they're a bad team, and you saw it the year they signed him. They started off like 0-7, and they ended up winning like 8 games, 9 games. You know, Jimmy G, I wish I had him on the Bears. I really do. He would be my franchise quarterback if he was on the Bears. San Francisco was averaging 25 points a game. With Jimmy G, imagine that being at 28 or a little bit higher. You could almost put him at averaging 30 points a game if you start Jimmy G. versus Seattle, Russell Wilson. We all know how good Russell Wilson is, but we also know how bad Seattle's defense is. San Francisco is they're holding other teams to 19 points a game. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to subtract about a touchdown from Seattle, and I think that San Francisco is going to get Seattle is allowing 28 points a game. I think that San Francisco gets all 28 of those points. I'm actually going to give them 30 points, 30 to 24. I am taking the over 53 points. I think that's easy. Over 53. If you don't feel confident in that over, believe it or not, San Francisco is the underdog in this game with a 3.5 point spread. Take San Francisco plus the 3.5 or the money line plus 140. I really think that you're going to be kind of a happy camper this week. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Of course, I'm going to give some of the ways you can reach me. Betting_home87. That's my Twitter. You can do myhomebet.com. You can find me on all your Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those fun things. I always promote safe and legal gambling. That's why I kind of started this show to promote safe and legal gambling. DraftKings, FanDuel, all that stuff. You don't no longer have to go to Jimmy at the end of the bar, the bookie at the end of the bar. So anyways, I'm going to end the show saying good night. Good night and good luck.